Shalom. Good evening. I'm filming in the nighttime right now, so you may be watching this in the day. We have another prophecy. If you have children, I really do not recommend children listening to what I'm about to say. This prophecy is very disturbing, and it's actually not appropriate for children. So, without further ado, I will get into the word.
Sex tourism is a multi-billion-dollar global industry, and Colombia is one of its leading destinations. Here, sex work is legal, but a number of foreigners are coming for illicit sex with minors.
So I've just touched down in Medellin, which is Colombia's second largest city, and I'm actually about to meet my driver. By day, she works for journalists like myself, but by night, she actually works as a pimp.
Mariana, which is not her real name, fixes sex parties for foreign visitors. What are the tourists looking for? What do they ask for?
Básicamente sí vienen a conseguir prostitutas a que estén con ellos. Entonces le piden a uno que una mansión, una finca, con chicas, con vicio.
How much does a party like that cost?
$10,000, $15,000, hasta $20,000.
Mariana denies she's a pimp and sees herself as a tour operator. But under Colombian law, any sexual transaction facilitated by a third party is pimping. Have you ever had any Australians?
Algunas sí, he conocido. Les gusta mucho la mujer colombiana, me dicen que les gusta mucho la mujer latina, que por eso les gusta venir mucho a Colombia.
This is where it all takes place, Parque Lleras, a mix of high-end hotels, Airbnbs, brothels and nightclubs. Everywhere, sex is for sale.
El turismo sexual en Colombia es una mafia muy grande y lamentablemente nuestra ciudad tiene cosas muy lindas, pero el beneficio de que nos visiten más que todo es la sexualidad. Entonces es algo que inevitablemente es lo que mueve la industria de Colombia.
Accessing a girl is as easy as picking from catalogues that are shared across WhatsApp networks.
And so how old is, say, this woman here?
20, 22, 25, 30, más de 30 no tiene. No sabemos ni la edad, ni dónde vive, ni qué edad.
How likely is it that some of the girls working in this industry are under 18?
Tenemos una probabilidad de un 90% de que haya muchos menores de edad.
Even though sex work is legal here, it's not if you're under 18. But it's estimated around 12% of sex workers in the country are children.
Right now, the scene here is absolutely extraordinary. There are hundreds of partygoers and countless women looking to pick up clients. And this corner is where it's all happening.
By 10 p.m, Parque Lleras becomes an open-air brothel. Tourists and young women fill the square. Tourists who have sex with children are breaking the law, but they take advantage of local situations in which minors are made easily available for exploitation. Poor economic conditions, favourable exchange rates for the tourist, and relative anonymity are all key factors.
La otra cara de Cartagena. Estamos en La Boquilla, en una parte en la zona norte en la ciudad de Cartagena. Como estás viendo, bueno, un poco abandonada por el gobierno.
carente de muchas cosas.
On the doorstep of Cartagena's luxury beach resorts, locals here live in extreme poverty.
Buenas tardes.
Shirley is the local community leader.
Aquí hay sectores que no tienen agua. Hay sectores que la luz es prácticamente robada. La educación aquí no es una educación buena. Ven, dámela a mí, dámela a mí. Todo eso lo vuelve a uno muy susceptible ante una situación. Me tienen que enseñar.
Shirley says poverty makes kids more vulnerable. Tourists seem to offer money and opportunity.
Ahora, ¿qué niño, qué joven no quiere tener teléfono? ¿Quién no quiere tener un juguete avanzado? Ven a la televisión, yo quiero esto, y ve que el padre no se lo puede comprar. Pero llega una persona de fuera con malas intenciones, ofreciéndole, y él lo va a tomar. Él lo va a tomar.
Making matters worse is the fact the community lacks any knowledge of what sexual abuse and sexual exploitation are. This can mean the family is complicit or reluctant to intervene.
Yo tengo un caso que yo ayudé a una niña de 14 años y ella me decía, yo no sabía que el que me tocaran por aquí, el yo estar con una persona mayor que yo, era una explotación sexual. O sea, yo quedé tan sorprendida. Y son cosas que cuando uno desconoce, uno permite que abusen de uno.
It's this context that traffickers and foreigners exploit.
Esta es la casa.
Shirley shows me the house of one foreigner who was living here in the community. He's been arrested on charges of child sexual abuse.
What is this just next door? Is that a kindergarten?
Sí, allá donde está el portón azul es un colegio. Y acá diagonal hay otro.
This is the man who was living in that house. A 79-year-old Italian national named Dario Lavoratori. Currently in jail, he's accused of sexually abusing 3 girls, aged just 11 years old.
Hola.
¿Cómo estás?
Bien, gracias.
Veronica, not her real name, is the mum of one of the alleged victims. She's agreed to speak to me by phone to protect her identity.
Ella es una niña muy dulce, amable, ella se dedica a que con todo el mundo. Ella es como, dice uno vulgarmente acá, ella es bastante pegajosa.
According to Veronica, in June last year, her daughter was introduced to Dario Lavoratori by a cousin who met Dario while attending school. She says they visited Dario's house on several occasions after he promised to teach them to speak Italian.
Ella me contó de que él la manoseaba, le decía hacer cosas que ella decía que como no las veía malas, ella, o sea, le seguía. Porque ella decía que le iba a darle plata o le daba, ¿cómo le daban una cachuchería?
Then, in November last year, her daughter's cousin and friend went missing for several hours. They were later allegedly found drugged and alone. It's alleged at least one of the girls was raped.
This is incredibly shocking and upsetting to hear. How did you feel when you heard this?
Yo decía que ese señor no se lo llevaban preso, yo me lo mataba con mi plan. Como las niñas que no tienen, o sea, ni cuerpo ni nada como para hacer esas cosas.
How is your daughter doing now?
No, no está deprimida, ni afligida, ni nada. Pero la otra niña sí está un poco bastante afectada, está rebelde, no le hace caso a la mamá. O sea, son muchas cosas que la han afectado mucho.
So this word is for South America, for the countries of Argentina, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Colombia. This is the fall of these 4 countries. This is their visitation, in fact. Many will fall by persecution, and I'll actually explain what that persecution is, but I need to first state what they're being accused of by Yahuah. And these countries have there's an outcry of children, and there's an outcry of infants that are being harmed by adults. These are infants and these are children, so yeah, babies, those that are 7, 5, even 3 years old, 13-year-olds. This is who this is happening to. I specifically, when I was looking for my images today for the thumbnail, I really wanted to make sure that I put young children in there, because I really want us to feel the pain of this message. One thing about following Yahuah is that this walk, it makes you uncomfortable. When we are in the refining process, when we're coming from the world and now we're desiring righteousness, there's a lot of things that make us uncomfortable that Yahuah will tell, I don't like this, let's change this is wicked. So, and it makes us uncomfortable at first, or for me anyway. It was difficult for me when I was getting my daily bread, and my daily bread was telling me, hey, stop this thing, stop this, stop doing this. So it requires a lot of humility. But with that being said, so in that same way, in the beginning stages, and overall following Yahuah, there's discomfort that we have to deal with, and in ministries and all ministries, because Yahuah requires us who are prophets, those that are also teaching, and in other ministries as well, to expose what is in the dark, to expose what is in secret, and to bring it to the light. Right? So that is what I'm required to do right now, is to expose what Yahuah has been seeing in the dark for a long time. And, this is something that citizens of these countries are even aware of, but it's kind of a taboo. It's kind of taboo. Nobody really wants to talk about it, but I will talk about it, because that's the least I can do for these babies, to support them. But as I was saying, so there's a lot of harm to little ones. I don't know if I can say this on YouTube. I hope so. But there is child pornography, lots of it in that country. There is rape. There is penetration of the backside to babies and infants. And when I was told that part, it made me think of how many of these children lose their lives in the process of the wicked doing this to these babies that we're supposed to be protecting. So because these people are, I don't even know what word I can use, this is just pure filth. This is just pure wickedness. But because they want to do that, Yahusha said, I will repay. And the big and small, the rich to the lowest class participate in the harming of my little ones. Meaning that this is not just done by those who are rich. For example, I hope one day I will be led to speak about Afghanistan and Pakistan, because this is also a lot of child abuse in the same aspect, a lot of sexual child abuse in those countries. But for example, in Afghanistan, it's typically done by those that are in power, that like to harm, especially young boys. But the difference between Afghanistan and these countries is that it's not just done by the big, meaning the wealthy, those that have money, those that are in the government, those that have power. This is actually done by just the average citizens as well. So from the greatest to the least, and I don't mean by like human value or anything like that. It's just those that read scripture know why I'm using it in those terms. But just from those that have power and to those that are just the average citizen are partaking in this filth. So Yahushua will repay both the great and the small, and this is their visitation. Howl, moan. And I said earlier that these people are going to be persecuted, and the cause of persecution is the death penalty. So guys, for us that have a little bit of discernment, we know that we're not far from the beast system. So the death penalty is actually going to come to these countries, and Yahusha said that he will allow it because of your wickedness. And he pleads, who will save you? Not me. So even Yahusha is not going to prevent this penalty from coming to Argentina, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Colombia. And the reason why Yahusha is going to allow this death penalty to come to these 4 countries, and to allow it, and to allow many, may I add, many will lose their lives. The reason for this is because these countries have a high level of child abuse, sexual child abuse, child pornography, penetration to the backside of babies, children, and definitely more. But that is what I have been told. This topic is very very painful for me, honestly. Like when I first learned about this, yeah, I just would cry typically. So with the topic of children, I'm very sensitive, but I feel like this is the least that I can do to stand up for them. I can't, I wish I could, but I can't just let them all come and live with me in my home. I would love to do that and protect them, all the children in the world that get harmed, because they're just babies, and we should be protecting them, not harming them. But this is the word of Yahuah today, everybody. I want to say, I know I said earlier, but this is very uncomfortable and it's very disturbing. And when we have these type of messages, I really, really encourage us all to be praying for children, to be praying for protection of children, for the repayment of those who harm the little ones. Right? They just want to play. They just want to play, and they just want to. They're precious, And I've learned with my prophecy, because I have knowledge of the secrets that are going on in this earth, and Yah willing, one by one we will tackle them all together. But I've learned that it's really important to pray for the protection of children, to pray for the protection of those that are being harmed, to those that are kidnapped, to those that are being tortured all across the whole earth, because it is happening. The news doesn't necessarily report on these things. You know, these things happen way, way, way more than we may actually acknowledge.
Maria Elena Leusi runs a rape victim association and filed a complaint against River Plate when she received information that young players were also abused between 2004 and 2011.
Médica, cirujana.
A doctor that worked at the club wrote to us she had proved that children were also part of a ring. She had to take time off because she was told not to get involved. We also received a letter where a former player says that children were forced to prostitute themselves to be allowed to move forward in their careers.
Leusi has been receiving threats since she contacted the authorities and is now using what is known as a panic ring.
River Plate is one of the most famous clubs in the country. It is a multi-sports club that operates hostels for young players recruited from other parts of Argentina or abroad. The sexual abuse scandals involves young players that live here because they do not have any relatives in Buenos Aires.
Gustavo Gravia has been investigating the abuses and says there is a common pattern.
Son dos casos que tienen.
There are two cases where we see a similar situation. We see individual cases, but they happen inside the club with children that have a very vulnerable economic situation who are not from Buenos Aires. For example, a 13-year-old that is from Chaco who has no money, trains for 2 hours a day, and pedophiles try to take advantage of that.
The dream of becoming a big a star as Lionel Messi has left hundreds of children exposed in Argentina. And even though the Argentine Football Association says it will now look at conditions in the hostels where the young players live, that won't repair the damage that has already been done. Teresa Bo, Al Jazeera, Buenos Aires.
And it's simply because the news is the world's news, okay? So they're not going to report on everything that is happening. I think this part is my personal opinion. I think that they don't, simply because if the people of the world actually knew what type of world they lived in, I don't think they would be too happy, and they probably would be very scared. And that's just not in Canada and America, but I think the whole earth, if we actually knew every single thing that goes on in the dark, it would very much so disturb us. Sorry, my sister came, but as I was saying, I believe that it would disturb people. Let's just be real here. If people actually knew of what is done to children and what people do to one another, and every single call that the police are getting, people would be terrified. Because this earth is wicked, as I've said before in other prophecies, that this earth is very evil and very wicked. And Yah willing, Yahushua will expose what goes on. Now, I just want to point something out. Remember how in the beginning I said that I specifically put young children in the thumbnail for the video, so we feel the true intensity of this message? And in the documentaries that I attached, you know, the clips that I put in this prophecy, do you see how they're trying to kind of downplay it? They are in fact saying that, no, this is happening to an 11-year-old. I put that in there. Or in the beginning, the pimp said that 90% of the girls are underage, but they're not actually sitting there saying, yeah, in our country, this is also happening to younger children. They're still trying to cap, to put like a capacity on how intense this abuse is. I just wanted to point that out. I just really wanted to point that out to prove my point as to why I said the news and the world, they don't want, even that lady made a documentary from Australia. She's not going into the depth of how bad it is. That clip I attach of Argentina, yes, they did put little boys, but when they're speaking, they're not saying this is very normal in our country, and children even younger are being harmed in this way and worse. I tried to find a clip. There was on the news. They had like I don't know what you could call it, but there was an event where the citizens of one of these countries in the video, I just don't remember which one, was taking toys, children toys, and they're putting them on the street, and there was hundreds and hundreds of children toys just lined up, and there were signs in that area saying, "Stop the abuse of children." And as I was watching that documentary, it said that children are even abused by their family members. I tried to find it, but I couldn't. When I went back to my YouTube, I couldn't find it anymore. But I recommend, if anybody can find it, go watch it, and I will source this documentary down here for anybody that wants to watch it. But I just wanted to point that out so you understand. This is another reason why Yahuah is so angry, because they know what's happening in their country, and everybody's being quiet about it. Because discomfort, to hold on to the feeling of discomfort is more important than to expose the wickedness that is done to babies, to young children. The average age is probably 7 years old. The average age of abuse is under 10 years old. This is what I have been told by Yahuah. The average age of abuse in these countries is not 13 or 15 or 18. No, it is under 10 years old. Do we understand how wow. Sin really does reproach a nation, doesn't it? Just as Psalm says. Anyways, I will continue. But with that being said, like, the responsibility of us is to pray for the protection of those that can't protect themselves. And harm happens to everyone, right? We just need to pray for those that are getting hurt in these ways, and to pray for those that are harming them to be punished by Yahuah. Not the world, but by Yahuah. So yeah, this one's very tough, but we must be able to handle the truth. But may we continue to pray for these children. And that is all for this specific word. The death penalty is coming to Argentina, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Colombia for their filth and their harm and their abuse to the little ones, to babies, to young children, to young ones, teenagers that are not consenting to their wickedness. What other way can I put it? So, until next time, everybody, let us continue to serve Yahuah, where in the times where his wrath is upon the earth, I think I'm going to be led to be talking about more of these type of judgments, judgments for different countries and different locations in the world right now, because for the past maybe week or so, I've been getting this type of prophecy. So I think this is the direction I have to go in for now, but who knows? We will see. But until next time, let's focus on what matters. Let's focus on Yahuah. I know we're all celebrating Passover right now. We may be celebrating on different dates, but to everybody keeping Pesach, happy Passover. And for those who have not celebrated it, I don't even know who's going to watch this, but for those who have not celebrated it, I really recommend keeping the Passover. Every time I make videos, this is what happens, but I'm done anyway, so goodbye everybody for now.